They're quietly killing off the one bike regular people could actually afford, and most riders won't find out until it's gone. Stay to the end or risk missing the only chance you'll have to own real freedom on two wheels. This isn't just a deal, it could vanish overnight. It started with a listing on a local buy and sell group. A young commuter in Austin, Texas, scrolling between used sedans and secondhand e-bikes, stopped cold. A 2020 Honda Rebel 300, clean title, no crash history, just under 5,000 miles, for $1,200. That wasn't just a deal, it was a revelation. A full-sized, gas-powered cruiser for less than a new iPhone. The Honda Rebel 300 isn't supposed to be in that price range. With a sleek minimalist frame, LED lighting, cast wheels, a low 27-inch seat height, and a smooth 6-speed transmission, this bike doesn't look or ride like an entry-level machine. Its liquid-cooled single-cylinder engine has just enough bite for city sprints and weekend highway rides, while the optional ABS and lightweight handling make it ideal for beginners and veterans alike. In a market bloated with overpriced electric scooters and underpowered budget bikes, the Rebel 300 punches way above its weight. It looks like rebellion, rides like reliability, and costs less than 3 months of rideshare bills. That's why bikes like this one, especially in southern states where registration laws are more relaxed, are disappearing fast. The commuter who saw that deal wasn't alone. Listings for $1,000 Rebels are becoming folklore, snatched up within hours, sometimes by people who never even planned on riding. Because for many, this isn't just a vehicle, it's freedom, mobility, and identity at a price point no other machine offers. But something this good doesn't last, not with what's coming next. What's fueling this panic isn't just price, it's the ticking clock of regulation few riders even know exists. If you've ever ridden a Rebel or think bikes like this still matter, hit like and drop a comment below. Your voice keeps stories like this from disappearing completely. The motorcycle that might be outlawed next month. At an emissions lab just outside Sacramento, engineers in white coats run cold start tests on a lineup of small displacement engines. One of them belongs to the Honda Rebel 300. The results come in quietly. It barely clears California's 2023 compliance threshold. But starting in early 2024, the rules change. The margin for error vanishes. If the numbers don't improve, the bike will be blacklisted. The California Air Resources Board, better known as CARB, is preparing for a sweeping overhaul of small engine standards. Their target isn't just leaf blowers or lawn mowers, it's motorcycles too. And the Rebel 300, despite its efficiency and reliability, runs on a platform designed nearly a decade ago. While it's lean by cruiser standards, it still uses a traditional internal combustion engine, not a hybrid. CARB's new rules are designed for the future, and the Rebel is just barely holding on to the past. Federally, the Environmental Protection Agency still allows motorcycles like the Rebel 300 to be sold in most states, but that's only for now. Increasingly, CARB regulations are becoming the de facto national standard. 12 states already adopt their stricter emissions guidelines. More are preparing to follow. Once a model is delisted in California, it doesn't just vanish from that state, it disappears from half the country. And Honda has made no public commitment to redesign or recertify the Rebel 300 for the coming emissions wave. The strange part? The bike they're trying to erase might be the best value cruiser ever made. They can take the bike, but not the ride. Check the description for gear that keeps you in the saddle, no matter what they outlaw next. It feels like a $5,000 cruiser until you check the price tag. The first time Mark, a former Harley-Davidson owner, took a Honda Rebel 300 around a tight corner in downtown Charlotte, he laughed out loud in his helmet. "This thing feels like cheating," he told his buddy after pulling up at the next light, and that wasn't hyperbole. After 2 decades riding heavy cruisers with chrome tanks and high-maintenance carbs, Mark couldn't believe a bike this light, this nimble, and this quick could sell for what used to be a down payment. The Rebel 300's ergonomics are dialed in for daily use. The seat is low enough for shorter riders to flat-foot at red lights, but wide and cushioned for longer rides. The slipper assist clutch makes shifting smooth even in bumper-to-bumper traffic. The throttle response is crisp and the exhaust note has just enough rumble to feel real. There's no lag, no hesitation, just instant torque that makes city riding a joy instead of a chore. What surprised Mark most wasn't the specs, it was the attitude. This bike isn't trying to be a baby cruiser, it doesn't beg for upgrades. Out of the box, the Rebel feels premium. Comparable rides from other brands like the Yamaha ViStar 250 or the Royal Enfield Meteor cost 2 to 3 times as much and often feel stripped down. The Rebel feels whole. Even the digital display and LED headlight look more at home on a $5,000 machine. Right now, someone is trying to buy their last chance at owning one, and dealers are watching it unfold in real time. Dealers won't say it out loud, but the clock is ticking. In Baton Rouge, a wholesaler named Jacob scans inventory reports that look more like warning signs. 2 months ago, he had 17 Rebel 300s scheduled for distribution across the South. This week, he has 3. The next shipment, unconfirmed, and Honda won't give him a clear answer. Dealerships across Georgia, Alabama, and Texas are seeing the same pattern. Not just low stock, but no back orders. Bikes that were once slow movers on showroom floors are now being bought over the phone, sight unseen, at sticker price or higher. In Florida, some shops are tacking on pre-registration fees and calling it environmental compliance surcharges. Translation: they know the ban is coming and they're cashing in before it hits. In North Carolina, one manager quietly admitted that they're advising staff not to promote the Rebel 300 too heavily online. "We don't want to blow it up," he said, "because we can't get more." The pre-owned market is starting to reflect the squeeze. On Facebook Marketplace and Cycle Trader, Rebels that sold for $1,200 last fall are now listed for over $2,000. Sellers are using phrases like last chance and pre-ban model to lure anxious buyers. That quiet scramble turned into something louder, a rebellion that started with one petition and exploded across the internet. The petition exploding across the riding community. When Jasmine Myers hit publish on her online petition, she expected maybe a few hundred signatures. What she got was a firestorm. In less than 48 hours, the petition titled "Stop the Ban on the Honda Rebel 300" had crossed 25,000 signatures and was being reshared on motorcycle forums, local Facebook groups, and TikTok feeds by the thousands. Riders from California to Kentucky were posting videos with the hashtag #LetUsRide, showing off their Rebels with captions like "Affordable Freedom Under Attack" and "My first bike might be my last." What began as a simple Change.org petition became a movement. Jasmine, a 26-year-old riding instructor from Ohio, had no backing, just a Rebel 300 and a voice. Her message struck home. Don't punish everyday riders who can't afford a $20,000 EV. They call this a polluter, she said. I call it my only way to work. The public outcry wasn't limited to riders. Parents of college students, gig workers, and delivery drivers began chiming in. The Rebel 300 had quietly become the motorcycle of the working class, a machine that bridged style and necessity. The proposed regulations felt not just technical, but personal. And for Jasmine, that's what made it impossible to ignore. They think it's just about emissions, she said, but it's about people. While the public fought to save the bike, Honda's top brass were fighting to save their reputation. Inside Honda's dilemma: save the bike or the brand? In a quiet conference room in Torrance, California, a meeting of Honda's U.S. compliance and strategy teams stretched into its 4th hour. At the center of the table sat a folder marked Model C MX 300, phase-out options. Inside it, projected costs, regulatory timelines, and brand risk assessments. The decision was brutally simple and impossibly hard. Either spend millions re-engineering the Rebel 300 to meet 2025's tighter emissions requirements, or kill one of Honda's most beloved budget models and risk alienating an entire generation of entry-level riders. For Alan, Honda's Vice President of Product Compliance, the math was brutal. Updating the Rebel 300's engine would kill margins. It wasn't built for profit, it built loyalty. But under tightening emissions rules and pressure to electrify, even a beloved entry-level cruiser started to look less like an icon and more like a risk. The marketing department warned that canceling the Rebel outright could provoke backlash, not just from loyal customers, but from media and influencers. The finance team countered that spending millions to save a bike that sold for under $5,000 made no fiscal sense. Meanwhile, engineering flagged that any redesign would take over a year, pushing the model dangerously close to the compliance deadline. As the boardroom stalled, politicians rushed in to claim the spotlight and rewrite the narrative. This ban isn't about emissions, it's about control. Senator Curtis Langford stood at a podium draped in an American flag, holding up a laminated photo of a Honda Rebel 300. This, he declared to a cheering crowd, is the motorcycle they want to ban. Not because it's dangerous, not because it's dirty, but because it's yours. Langford wasn't subtle. A populist from Missouri, he seized on the Rebel controversy like a dog with a bone. In his speeches, it wasn't just a bike, it was a symbol of freedom, independence, and working-class grit. His argument wasn't rooted in emissions data or regulatory nuance. It was emotional, it was tribal, and it was effective. He painted the ban as part of a broader war waged by out-of-touch coastal elites on rural values and everyday Americans. In his telling, the Rebel 300 was being sacrificed to make room for luxury electric motorcycles built for people who'd never had grease on their hands. He mocked the regulators, slammed California's influence, and framed the emissions debate as a smokescreen for political control. They're not just banning a bike, he said on the Senate floor. They're banning your right to choose how you live and ride. The sound bites went viral. Langford's face appeared on morning news segments, and his quotes lit up conservative radio. But critics pushed back, pointing out the environmental necessity of cleaner engines and the global push toward electrification. Policy experts warned that tying emissions reform to culture war rhetoric could derail productive compromise and turn an engineering challenge into a political landmine. Rhetoric echoed through the halls of power, but on the ground it was wrench-turners who paid the price. The day the garage went silent. For over 30 years, Roy Henderson's garage in rural Tennessee had been the kind of place where you didn't need an appointment. You just showed up, rolled your bike in, and got a fair deal. His specialty wasn't superbikes or customs, it was everyday machines. Bikes like the Honda Rebel 300. He could strip one down with his eyes closed, tune it by feel, patch it up for college kids, single moms, or retirees trying to make their pension last. But lately, the bikes had stopped coming. Calls dropped off, walk-ins slowed to a trickle. And Roy knew why. Fear. The whispers about bans and parts shortages were scaring people off. No one wanted to invest in a machine that might become illegal in 6 months. And worse, the new models hitting the market were so digital, so complicated, they needed dealership-level tools and software to diagnose. Roy didn't have those. He wasn't a technician, he was a mechanic. His son had once planned to take over the shop. Now he was working construction in Nashville. "There's no future in wrenching," he told Roy over dinner, and that cut deeper than any policy ever could. This wasn't just about a bike. It was about the death of a trade, the disappearance of a lifestyle. In the vacuum left behind, something unexpected took shape, a sudden chaotic surge in value. From bargain to goldmine, the Rebel 300 bubble. When Dylan flipped his first Honda Rebel 300 on Facebook Marketplace, he didn't think much of it. He'd found a dusty 2018 model sitting under a tarp in a neighbor's backyard, picked it up for $1,200, gave it a basic tune-up, and listed it at $2,500. It sold in less than a day. Since then, he sold 5 more, all within 24 hours. The used bike market isn't just heating up, it's boiling over. The Rebel 300, once dismissed as a beginner's bike or campus commuter, has become the star of an underground boom. Collectors, resellers, and hobbyists are snapping them up like rare coins. Even Rebels with minor cosmetic damage or moderate mileage are selling for double what they fetched 6 months ago. Listings now use phrases like pre-ban model, no longer sold in Cali, and legacy ice bike, giving what was once an affordable option a premium, almost collector's cachet. On Craigslist in Phoenix, a Rebel 300 with 8,000 miles and worn grips is listed at $2,800. In Jacksonville, a dealership has begun advertising its last 3 Rebels with final chance signage and charging preemptive markups. Dylan calls it motorcycle arbitrage. Buy low, sell fast, feed the panic. His buyer list now includes delivery drivers, college students, and first-time riders, but also small-town collectors who think the Rebel 300 might soon be as iconic as the old Honda CB series. Prices are soaring, but behind the scenes, the parts that keep those bikes running are slipping out of reach. Good luck fixing it. Parts are drying up fast. At a regional distribution center outside Atlanta, pallets of motorcycle parts used to flow in and out like clockwork. But these days, things are different. Mark, a senior parts distributor for over a decade, has been watching Rebel 300 components disappear from the inventory grid with no clear return date. Throttle cables, back-ordered, OEM mirrors, unknown restock time. Brake levers, foot pegs, and even simple clutch springs are now flagged as pending. The system isn't broken, it's slowing to a crawl. Honda's priority list has changed. With increasing pressure from regulators and investors, the company is shifting focus toward its expanding EV pipeline. Small-volume gas-powered platforms like the Rebel 300 are being quietly deprioritized. That means fewer suppliers, smaller orders, and slower restocking. Warehouses that once held thousands of Rebel-compatible parts are being retooled to handle EV scooter frames and battery modules destined for Asia and Europe. What's left is a patchwork of shrinking inventory. Independent shops are turning to salvage yards or importing used parts from Southeast Asia. But that comes with delays, customs red tape, and inconsistent quality. For every rider who scores a cheap replacement lever, another is stuck with a 3-week wait in a garage-bound machine. And that's the nightmare scenario for owners who thought a $1,000 motorcycle would give them freedom, not frustration. That creeping shortage isn't just strangling garages, it's sending shockwaves through the global market. The motorcycle that shook investor confidence. In a downtown Tokyo boardroom, a room full of institutional investors listened as Honda's executive team gave its quarterly briefing. The slide deck was polished, the projections were conservative, but the Q&A got uncomfortable fast. One analyst asked directly, "What's the future of your ICE motorcycle division in North America?" The room fell quiet. Then came the carefully worded answer. "We are evaluating options in alignment with evolving emission standards." Translation: nothing is safe. Analysts have been watching the Rebel 300 situation closely, not because of the model's revenue, its margins are thin, but because of what it represents. The phase-down of a well-loved, high-volume starter bike signals more than a product change. It suggests a structural shift in Honda's willingness to fight for internal combustion in the motorcycle space. And that's not just bad news for riders, it's a red flag for investors. Motorcycles have always been a small but strategic slice of Honda's portfolio, especially in emerging markets. But the Rebel 300 was one of the few models that bridged the global divide. It sold well in both developed and developing countries. Its cancellation or regulatory suffocation signals a pivot, and markets hate uncertainty. While investors panicked, competitors saw an opening and wasted no time making their move. Harley, Triumph, KTM. They smelled blood in the water. Across the globe, rival motorcycle brands saw an opening. Inside a product strategy meeting at Triumph's headquarters in Hinckley, England, a whiteboard displayed 3 bold words: Rebel Replacement Roadmap. In Milwaukee, Harley-Davidson's development team greenlit a feasibility study on a new lightweight cruiser aimed at beginner riders. And at KTM's Austrian plant, executives dusted off a shelved mid-displacement street bike design and ordered a fresh round of emissions testing. For years, the Rebel 300 had quietly dominated its segment. Its balance of weight, reliability, and price made it almost untouchable. Other brands had either gone too small, too weird, or too expensive. But with the Rebel now vulnerable, the playing field suddenly looked open. Internal emails from a Triumph product manager leaked online referencing post-Rebel capture and vacuum response timing. The meaning was clear. Strike now while Honda hesitates. KTM, known more for dirt bikes and aggressive naked sport designs, began circulating sketches of a cruiser-style platform aimed at urban riders who felt priced out of the larger cruiser market. Harley, meanwhile, began quietly surveying Gen Z riders about style preferences and pricing tolerances. The question wasn't if they'd try to fill the gap, it was how fast they could do it. Just as rivals raced to claim the throne, global regulators changed the game entirely. They're not just phasing out the Rebel, they're replacing the engine itself. In Geneva at the Global Transportation and Energy Summit, a woman in a tailored Navy suit stood on stage beneath a bold slogan, "Zero Carbon by 2035. Her name was Erika Sundal, and she was one of the leading architects behind the European Union's internal combustion phase-out legislation. Her tone was firm, her message clear. "We are not banning vehicles," she said. "We are evolving transportation." To people like Erika, the Honda Rebel 300 was not a symbol of rebellion or freedom. It was a relic. Across cities like Oslo, Paris, San Francisco, and Berlin, emissions rules are tightening fast. Low-emission zones are expanding, and motorcycles like the Rebel 300 are being hit hard. With no hybrid option and outdated emissions, it lacks protection, and regulators know it. Erika's seen the data. This bike doesn't stand a chance. Behind closed doors, EV lobbyists like Erika are shaping the subsidies, grants, and infrastructure blueprints that make battery-powered motorcycles the future. And they're doing it with strategic precision. Charging stations tailored to scooters and e-motorbikes are appearing in inner cities. Government-backed purchase incentives in countries like India and Vietnam are tipping the scale. The message is coordinated: electrify or be left behind. In the shadows of the phase-out, Honda was already engineering its next move, one that could rewrite everything. The inside story of Honda's Plan B. In a high-security wing of Honda's R&D center in Kumamoto, a small team of engineers works behind frosted glass and under constant non-disclosure agreements. One of them, known here only as Hiroshi, has been quietly prototyping a machine codenamed CRX Alpha. The rumors are spreading inside the company and among strategic suppliers. CRX Alpha is not just any motorcycle. It is the possible successor to the Rebel 300. Whispers suggest two paths. One version is a lightweight cruiser powered by a lithium iron phosphate battery, designed for low-cost, high-durability commuter use. The other is a hybrid, blending a small combustion engine with a regenerative braking system to extend range and ease the transition for riders not ready to go fully electric. Both versions share one goal: beat the emissions deadline without losing the essence of what made the Rebel a success. Hiroshi and his team are under intense pressure. Executives want a quick solution, but engineers are warning that compromise on build quality or performance could destroy the brand's hard-earned trust. At the same time, the marketing division is split. Some want to lean into the electric future with clean lines, touchscreens, and minimalist design. Others argue fiercely for preserving the classic silhouette that made the Rebel iconic. Innovation can only go so far. Without the people building the machines, there is no comeback story. The union that refused to let the bike die. In Marysville, Ohio, inside one of Honda's oldest North American plants, union steward Teresa McMillan stands before a crowd of 300 workers, many still in grease-streaked uniforms. Her voice carries over the hum of idling machines. "We're not asking for a handout. We're demanding a seat at the table." The crowd erupts in applause. Teresa has spent the past 6 months organizing what she calls the ICE Preservation Front, a grassroots worker coalition fighting for a structured transition strategy that doesn't leave gas-powered manufacturing teams behind. Their core demands are simple: job protection during the electric pivot, retraining stipends for plant techs, and carve-outs in Honda's production schedule for at least one internal combustion engine platform until the end of the decade. That platform, they argue, should be a modernized Rebel. She's not alone. Union chapters in Japan, Mexico, and the United Kingdom are watching closely. Some are quietly circulating their own petitions, citing Honda's multi-billion-dollar war chest and arguing that cutting affordable ICE bikes is not about emissions, it's about eliminating labor-intensive assembly lines in favor of robotic EV manufacturing. They've marched, rallied, and raised their voices. Now, whether the fight ends or expands depends on what you do next. If you made it this far, you're the kind of rider they're trying to silence. Subscribe now, because the next machine they take away might be the one you're saving for. Why this bike's ban changes everything you buy next. Look around your neighborhood. The vehicles in your driveways, the bikes chained to apartment racks, the delivery scooters whizzing down your street, they all tell a story about access, about choice. The ban on the Honda Rebel 300 may seem small in the grand scheme of transportation reform, but its impact is seismic. When $1,200 can no longer buy a safe, reliable motorcycle, the cost of mobility rises for everyone. For consumers, the ripple effect is already visible. Budget motorcycles are disappearing from showrooms. EV replacements are not only more expensive, they require different infrastructure, different skill sets, and different expectations. The days of buying a cheap, fixable bike and riding it for 10 years are fading fast. In its place, we are entering an era of software-locked drivetrains, subscription features, and rapid depreciation. This isn't just about a motorcycle, it's about identity, about power, about the right to choose your own road. So the question is, do you ride now or watch it vanish? If this bike matters to you, don't wait. Like, comment, and subscribe now. The fight isn't over, and your voice might be the reason the Rebel doesn't disappear forever.